Hello.
I'm Corey.
I'm Troy.
And this is the My Life in Gaming panel.
I feel a little bad because, you know, the panels I've seen in here, you know, have had like a lot of like cool like presentations and stuff to show. And the first panel that we ever did, you know, we came up with this presentation and it was really just about RGB, the RGB masterclass stuff that we do. But people weren't really into the presentation because they were just, you know, just want to ask questions. So, you know, we've kind of shifted to our panels, just being a conversation, Q&A session, discussion, and this is, you know, not by any means limited to RGB, though we expect that there will be RGB related stuff going on here, but I mean, you know, this is just
like a general My Life in Gaming panel.
Yeah, so this is just an open general Q&A and conversation and whatever.
So does anybody have any questions? And then nobody has.
Well, all right. Let's look. So, I mean, is everyone here familiar with our show generally? So, I mean, we want to give sort of a basis of, you know, what the origins are.
Can I see a show of hands of people that are familiar with our show that are here? Most people. You want to give a little.
So we started the channel in October 2013. We're both video editors. We've worked professionally in video for, you know, both of us each have done that
over
for
10
like,
years.
Yeah, like 10, 12 years for both of us. And we met on a website called The Backloggery. It's just backloggery.com. I'm one of the co-founders of that website, and it's just kind of a game collection site where you kind of keep track of what games you have unfinished and beaten and 100% completed and stuff like that. And Corey was a member of that site. We just kind of hit off because, you know, we...
I was watching his live streams.
You were watching?
He was live streaming before it was a big thing.
Yeah.
On Justin.tv.
Yeah, back then. And and so we just hit off because we're both video editors and, you know, we were kind of playing a lot of the same games at the time and stuff. So, and then one day Corey was just like, we should make a YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, we'd also been looking at stuff that was this one website that showed a lot of, you know, really high quality video off of HDTV, and we built, you know, like a whole capture setup with no real reason beyond that. You're going to use it for streaming.
Right, I was going to use it for streaming, you know, and we were, you know, this is the Framemeisters and the RGB video and stuff, and we both like had kind of arranged like this identical, so we were talking about for like months and months and months, like, ooh, this, you know, this Framemeister is this expensive $300
There was a lot
box.
of pre-ordering Framemeisters and canceling the orders before they went through.
Yeah, because really it's like, no, I can't spend that much money. But we both sort of ended up like making this like identical game capture setup, you know, using, you know, high quality upscaling and using real consoles and stuff, and that kind of did start the channel. And then the funny thing about that is we made this what we consider sort of an ultimate game capture setup. And the first series that we did was this series inspired by these old sort of how to win NES videotapes. There was a series called Game Players Game Tapes, and they had this like clueless like radio voice narration reading these scripts about these video games and stuff that doesn't make any sense, and they call things the wrong names and mispronounce things, and it's, you know, it's hilarious, and they've got star wipes and all that good stuff. And so we're like, Corey was like, what if we did that but with modern games? And I'm like, yes, let's do that. And so then, you know, the channel kind of started out from there, but it ultimately started with building this like really good game capturing setup.
Only to make it look really bad.
And then we're like, let's capture modern games and then edit them and then export them to VHS tapes and then record it back in. That's the way to get it done. So, but then, like, you know, when we started you know, we actually got some pretty good attention with that early on, I would say.
Yeah, I remember our first one was DuckTales Remastered, and we didn't really advertise it was coming out at all. Like, we didn't tell anybody. We just released it October 1st.
Very first video on the channel, and we had no name.
And WayForward picked it up and shared it. We got the 301 plus, you know, where YouTube used to say 301 views and it would stop. pretty quick.
Yeah, so I mean, so we had like some success early on, but we were, you know, still
Didn't really hit though.
Yeah, we were still a very, very small channel.
Our Zelda, Wind Waker HD.
Yeah, that got posted around. That was like what, like the third or the fourth or fifth video or
Yeah.
so. But then about a little under a year into the channel, we decided to do this video about, you know, RGB, because this is how we started the channel really, and we thought this is.
It was mainly about, you know, just like the Framemeister and what we had.
We had done. Like, we weren't, like, honestly that deeply integrated into the RGB scene. We weren't into like PVMs and, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, we really, like, the Framemeister, the whole upscaling angle was like how we were brought into that, and we were like, hey, did you know that some of these systems can do better than composite and S-video? I didn't know that until like 2 years ago, you know. And then there was a lot of attention given to that. Like, a lot of people were like, wow, I didn't know that. And, you know, so the video caught on, and, you know, it was like this whole world that we weren't aware of until relatively recently at that time. And, you know, we just helped make a lot more people aware of that whole RGB world. And definitely the growth of the channel since then has been driven by the RGB series, but we still do lots of other things, and we've been slowly just doing like a documentary a year. That's always been kind of something we wanted to do, and we're trying to push even harder to get, like, you know, 2, 3, you know, eventually maybe even more documentaries out a year. That's something that we really want to focus on, make a big aspect of the channel.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at, and now we're at Missouri GameCon.
Yeah. All right. If anyone has any questions, I know that you sir, had a raise your hand earlier.
My original question was about more or less some of the things you just explained, the RGB channel. I was looking up, just kind of what that was all about and what you guys are doing with it.
What are we doing with it in general? I mean,
Like,
it never ends.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's like, you get some stuff, you get it all set up as best as you think you can, and then you find
like,
something else.
Yeah, it's like, this is perfect. I never need to change anything in my setup ever again.
And then someone tells you, like, oh, actually, this thing you're using is not so good.
Yeah, so, but yeah, like for the near future on that, we're working on a PS2 RGB episode. Well, when we say RGB, that's just kind of become the name of the series.
Right.
But it's, you know, it encompasses everything, you know, from composite video or even RF video, you know, to RGB and HDMI and beyond. It's just kind of become our term for talking about the broad range of video quality. And it's not about necessarily like saying like, this is the best. Like, it's just helping people understand what the range of things is, because for a lot of people's setup, like, S-video like makes the most sense. Like, they've got like this really good consumer CRT with S-video. Well, you know what? S-video looks great on that.
And we used it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
It's thinking it was the best that could be done.
Yeah.
We never want anybody to feel like that they're not doing it right.
Right. Right.
All right. Anybody else have some questions? You, sir?
Have you guys thought of, because you guys both have pretty elaborate like setups at your own houses and stuff, kind of like doing independent videos, or maybe just doing one big one together, sort of going through your guys' setup, so like here's what TV I use or which ones I use, and kind of
we kind of did a like a studio tour and like how we make the show episode a little bit over a year ago, I think.
Which is oddly enough kind of become outdated.
Yeah, that's why I kind of asked, just because it's been such a while, and especially like when you guys kind of do RGB, but especially for you, it have to update it more regular than you probably think.
Right. Yeah. I feel like, you know, the channel, you know, the fact that we run this channel kind of pushes us to buy things that we wouldn't have bought otherwise. It's like, oh, we need this. Like, for example, like you're going to get an HDMI modded GameCube soon. You don't really need an HDMI GameCube, but you're like, we need one in-house. We might need to capture from one.
Right, just like you did with the high-def NES.
High-def NES, which actually, oddly enough, I've been using the high-def NES is the HDMI mod for NES.
Right.
You know, I mostly use RGB, and I've got an NT Mini, and it's like, I don't need a high-def NES. But, you know, I had an opportunity to get one, and it was like, well, but we need one in-house. We might need to capture from it. I've actually been using it a bit, mostly because my RGB NES is away getting work on it right now. So, but, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot. I mean, we can answer more specific questions in regard to the setup and stuff if desired. But I've added a 4K TV to my setup.
Which is going to be a whole episode.
In like the past month. So yeah, we're going to do an episode. Hopefully, I'm hoping to release it in November. I want to get it out before Black Friday because I feel like people are going to be like searching for like 4K TV stuff, leading up to Black Friday, and they'll want some information. So we're going to hopefully show like sort of a lower price 4K TV and a higher price 4K TV that represent a good range and work really well with some of the retro console upscaling options, which can be finicky, like the OSSC, the open source scan converter. That kind of relies on like the timings, the weird timings that the retro console outputs, and it just outputs that same thing to an HD TV, and it doesn't necessarily always like it. But it seems like a lot of 4K TVs are actually playing with it very nicely. So that's going to be sort of an interesting thing, I think.
Yes, sir.
What's been the most difficult piece of content for you guys to produce, and what games are you guys playing right now?
Okay.
I think the hardest thing is like every RGB episode. This past Saturn RGB episode, I had what I called editor's block on it. I just couldn't get anything to like work well together. It just really was hard. And we were in this position where we had finished the Night Trap documentary that we released, and we were kind of waiting to release it, and I didn't have closure on that to move on to the next thing. So that was pretty tough.
Yeah, RGB episodes. I mean, a lot of people have asked Corey at the convention here, like, was the Night Trap documentary the hardest thing you've ever made?
But it definitely wasn't. Night Trap documentary was much easier because you put that raw footage from the game on screen, and
which is higher quality than has ever been seen.
Yeah, and it just it almost like edits itself in a way.
Yeah. Even though it was long and obviously complicated, went through a lot of variations, in part because we had it almost ready for a long time, but you're like, oh, I could tweak this or tweak that.
Yeah.
For me, we both sort of edit our own episodes. We kind of like, generally speaking, like there have been a few instances of where it was like, but for the most
those
part,
who don't know, we live about 8 hours apart. We work remotely, using Dropbox and Google Drive a lot.
Yeah, so for the most part, it's like this is an episode edited by Corey, and this is an episode edited by Try, although there are cases where it's like, I edit my segments and he edits his segments, but for the most part, we like roughly alternate editing duties, just based on whatever we're interested in editing.
We'll provide the footage, like if somebody needs something, like, oh, can you get me this? Give me a shot of this.
Yeah, that happens a ton. But for me, I would say the Game Boy RGB episode was, that is over an hour long, which I never would have dreamed
and it was
going
kind of
into
in the works, like on and off for a year.
Or maybe at least half a year. Because like I got...
We had materials for it.
We had some materials for it, because, that's true, that is true. But like the actual collecting of footage, like I was able to borrow a Wide Boy, which is this thing that lets you play Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games on N64, which is like this super rare device, and I got to borrow it, and I was super excited about that. But like the guy that I was borrowing it from actually uses it for streams, so I couldn't like hold on to it forever. So I had to like gather the footage for that. That was like in the summer last year, and we actually released the episode in December. And so that was like so time consuming. At the time I felt like I had put like half of the work hours for a whole year into that one episode.
But you were really like in a zone. A lot of times we like start to feel burnt out, before we're almost to the end of an episode. It's like I can't even tell if this is good or not anymore.
Right, you lose perspective on if it's like, does anyone care about this? Is it interesting? But like that episode, like even though it was so much work, like I felt like energized up until like pretty much the very end of that episode.
And even at the end, you were like, you wanted that shot for the very end from the ending of Super Mario Land.
Right. So like
if I don't play to the end of the game, I'm always going to regret that I didn't put this in there.
Right, because I really want the ending credits scene of Super Mario Land, which is like just like one of my favorite things on the system. And I was like, I got it on a real Game Boy. I'm like, I'm going to have to play through the whole game, which is only like 30-40 minutes to do anyway. But Like I was like so close to the end. I'm just like, I want it done. I'm like, I really want that ending shot, like shot off of a real Game Boy. So I made it. I was nervous too, because like I had to like hold it in my hand and play it, but I had to have like the camera shot ready. So I like had to like, beat Tatanga, and then I had to like slide it under the camera and hope that I had it like straight under the camera, when the ending scene is playing. So that was like definitely the most work. Probably some episodes that have been less work, but have been like just
Framemeister Alternatives.
Framemeister Alternatives was just like, honestly, a little bit miserable of an episode to work on, because, and the Switchers episode was both pretty tough, because it was just like testing like so many things, and I can't even really think of a whole lot to even describe about editing those episodes, because I've like pushed so much of it out of the back of my mind. But those were
they were both originally supposed to be my episodes too.
Oh yeah, that's right. How'd that happen? I forgot about that. Actually, but the Switchers episode, like I basically had to tear apart my whole setup to even do that. And because like I had to like check different systems and different switchers and all this. It was actually worked out good, because I kind of had to tear up my setup anyway to install my my new TV.
So what are you playing?
Oh, what are we playing? Well, the second part of that, what are we playing right now? I just finished playing on the plane ride here. I beat I Am Setsuna. Which I imported the Switch version from Japan, which if you buy that's the only physical version of the game that you can play in English. If you put in an American Switch, it actually says I Am Setsuna instead of whatever the Japanese name is. It's interesting, like on the Switch menu. So I finished it. I actually really like that. Like people kind of seem to not be that super into it. Like it was really hyped. But like, I actually think they expanded on the Chrono Trigger battle system in some interesting ways. It's certainly no Chrono Trigger as a complete package, but I mean, it was good. I liked it. And then I started. Is Douglas still in here? I started Oceanhorn on the PlayStation Vita. Also while we were here, which was actually a happy accident, because I thought I ordered the PS4 one and I accidentally ordered the Vita one. And I'm like, oh. I'm probably going to beat I Am Setsuna, so I should have like another travel game, so I'm playing that right now.
I just started, I'm about 10 hours into Nier Automata, which I loved Nier. I loved the soundtrack, and I wasn't kind of expecting it to be so open world as it is, but I think it's great. Any other questions? Please? Oh, right here.
Do you guys have any documentaries planned or ideas for documentaries?
Oh,
we do have ideas, but I feel like some of them, none of them were like totally like super locked down or confirmed. So
we have some at least one dream project that will hopefully happen.
Yeah. So I don't want to like talk too much about that, because there's a lot of things that we need to line up to make them happen. But we're feeling like really confident.
We've got a ton of ideas. I mean, what are some ideas that we've had that like we think we can? We really want to do
let's talk about. I mean. Oh yeah.
One that we really want. One we want to do is kind of, I guess it hits close to what we normally do. We want to do kind of an all-encompassing documentary on like different modders that we'd love to get involvement from, like like Ketris, just kind of see like him working in his normal environment.
That's something we haven't even talked to him about, or most of these people, but like and it's something that could possibly take even a couple of years, like just talking to these people as we maybe are working on other projects. Right. But that's something that we've tossed around. But there's also things like related to specific games. It's something we're trying to do with our documentary stuff. I mean, there's several people doing documentary stuff like No Clip, Danny O'Dwyer.
Yeah, huge inspiration for us.
Yes, absolutely. And
I wish we had the funding that he did. He does.
Yeah. But a lot of people who are doing stuff are kind of talking to modern developers and people
Yeah.
who release recent games. And our real passion is, and we like modern games too, but our real passion, we would, like, given the opportunity, like, absolutely be interested in talking to developers who have released recent games. But I think really where our big passion is, where we really want to tell the stories of like older games and talk to the developers like before those stories are lost, like find out about the development of some of those old classics.
Yes, sir.
What are some of your favorite episodes? Like, I like your more personal ones, about like your cruising episode.
I think there was a comment on the cruising video just today that said something like I don't know how you can drive and talk about video games at the same time. But for those that haven't seen that episode, I have like this I'm like driving my car, but I've got
you put a green
sheet pinned to the wall of my garage, and then I borrowed a GoPro from work, and on my way to lunch one day, I just like stuck it to the side of the window and just like drove to lunch with the GoPro recording, and then just like put that video behind me. But some of our favorite, I think you've got.
I love the Time Crisis episode that I did.
Yes.
It's fun because it covers so many different games, but it also, I get to like show like some close-ups of the guns and stuff. It was a lot of fun. I think that, light gun stuff, you never see a lot of like high quality capture of light gun games being played, because the way that it works, a lot of people, the only way they can do it is like using composite. So I use this whole roundabout way to be able to capture and play in RGB and capture at the same time.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know why like some of the RGB episodes are leaping to my mind. I want to think of some others, but like the Game Boy episode, which I already mentioned, like I was like very proud of that when I finished it, and I felt like I'd made something really special, like this over hour-long thing about the Game Boy. Like it was a huge undertaking. Another one I'm actually really proud of is the PlayStation episode, just about RGB on PlayStation 1. The reason I like that episode so much is that basically nothing about the information in that video has changed. Because
and is now our #1 most viewed episode, thankfully passing the N64 anti-aliasing hack video.
Yeah, which I
has
hated
more dislikes than most of our videos combined.
And I hated that was the most viewed video. Maybe we should make more controversial stuff. I don't know. But I really like the PlayStation one because like that there was like no mods in that episode.
Yeah.
Which is like this is like you can do this with like your PlayStation, like and so that comes to mind. Can you think of any like game showcase video?
I love doing
that
you've done?
would be for me. Yeah. Like what
I have to like look at a list. I feel like a lot of these old ones, like I just kind of forget when I'm in a spot like this.
It's like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing.
Like it's something that's kind of fun that I have loosely ongoing. Is I've got this this passion. Well, I don't know if I should say passion, but I've got this like dumb idea that like I want to. Like I was a big fan of Rare, like Rareware in the N64 and SNES days, and then they went to Microsoft. I didn't have an Xbox at the time, and I didn't. I ended up buying a PS3 instead of an Xbox 360, and I didn't really see at the time a lot of reason to get both systems because there was so much overlap in the library. And I'd say, well, PS3 has the exclusives that I want more, but I do still want some of the Xbox 360. But I didn't get one until relatively recently. And so I've got this dumb idea where I want to go through, like, because everyone says, everyone thinks Rare lost their touch. But I feel like a lot of people saying that didn't actually even play that many or any of their games, but they're just saying, oh, Rare, as soon as they were gone from Nintendo, was no good. And I'm sure there is some extent of truth to that. I'm sure that some of the magic was lost along the way. But I want to, like, it always felt like every time I saw a Rare game released during those days, it sort of tugged at me. It's like, I can't play that. I want to see, I want to know for myself if it's any good. So I'm only like 3 games into that series so far, which is, I'm doing the Menorah, Grabbed by the Ghoulies, which was actually really good. Like, no one seems to like that game. I thought it was great. So that actually made me really optimistic about it. And then, the Conquer remake is about what I expected, and Cameo was fine. People were like, really like, oh boy, Perfect Dark Zero, because that's gonna be the next one. Like they're trying to make me dread it, but like, come on, it couldn't be that bad.
We like to say that a lot. Like,
Yeah,
how bad can it be?
Yeah. Like I think in general we're like very like kind of like optimistic about games. Like we're not like ultra critical about stuff. Like we're always, I think both of us like generally try to go into a mindset of playing a game. It's like, I want to find like something cool and interesting about this. And I'm like trying to understand, like no one sets out to make a bad game.
Yeah.
So it's like, what was the developer thinking when they did this? Like, try to think of it from their perspective. Why was this an interesting thing to do?
I think we don't have a hard time putting us into like a mindset of when it was released as well.
Yeah, it's like this was interesting at that time because
in certain like modern conveniences, we're not going to knock on a game that doesn't have that stuff.
Yeah, and because we're used to playing that all the time, we're used to
Right.
playing games without modern conveniences. But I think in related to that, we were talking to someone about this just yesterday. Like we call something that people might think of our videos as like a review, like a game video that we did. They might think of as a review, but we call them showcases. Because we might sprinkle in some opinion and we'll say, oh, this kind of works, this is kind of frustrating, this is really cool, but for the most part, we're kind of just showing the game. We're just saying, here's what it is, we're trying to record it and present it in the best quality and way that we can. And it's just like, here is what we think you should see about this game. But we don't think of it as a review. We don't feel qualified to call ourselves reviewers or anything.
All right, yes, sir.
You guys have any more coming down the line on the How to Beat series at all?
Yeah.
On your channel?
Well,
We kick it around every now and then.
Yeah, How to Beat has been kind of defunct since I think the last one released on November 7th, 2014.
Yeah, it was
I think.
Hyrule Warriors, and it kind of just didn't do as well as some of the previous ones. We were kind of like, well, maybe the hype has died down, but well, go ahead.
In 2015, at Too Many Games, we released a actual VHS tape. We made like 50 of them. That compiled 7 of them on the one tape. We had other YouTubers make like commercials for in between. And since then, I have been getting as many blank VHS tapes as I could from Goodwill whenever they pop up, and like viewers have been sending them to me, so I can do another run of those, and maybe even do a volume 2, so I can compile the rest, and then maybe do like a double VHS tape compilation in a clamshell case.
Yeah, it's like the Disney style clamshell VHS, and we found like a distributor in like Michigan that how many did we buy? Like 50?
Yeah, you could only buy them 100.
100. So we've got like 100.
Oh, you're right. It's 50.
So do we already have the other cases? Do you have them?
No, we didn't. No,
I don't have.
We did. You know what? It was 50 because we made 50 total copies, and we gave some of them away. We only sold like 35 of them.
And they're like, yeah, people don't really buy these anymore.
Yeah.
Or how long they've been sitting.
But we've also been thinking about just compiling them all into a Blu-ray. We did this Blu-ray for Night Trap with Limited Run, and had a great time putting it together. A job I had a long time ago was like authoring DVDs. It's kind of brought me back to them at a really great time, and I think that it'd be fun to compile like different episodes onto Blu-ray. So I think that's going to happen eventually.
It's always fun to hear a comment about How to Beat because we're so much known for RGB more than we are known for anything else. So I always really like it when people say like, oh, I loved your episode about this or that, and it was something that wasn't RGB. It's like, that's nice.
Yes, sir.
What is your guys' favorite portable console?
Favorite portable console?
Oh, it's actually kind of funny because both of us said before I'm not saying this is my favorite portable console, but just kind of related to that. Both of us said that before the Switch came out, we're like, it's basically never going to leave the dock. And then what's funny is we actually 2 or 3 days after the Switch came out was when we flew to LA to shoot the Jim Riley interview for the Night Trap documentary. And so here we were in the hotel room
An Airbnb with no TV or anything.
Yeah, and we were playing Breath of the Wild oh, did you see this? Have you found this? Or I found this over,
The best way to experience the game.
Yeah, and it was like, here we were thinking that like we wanted to only play this on our TV, and then we were having this awesome experience playing the game, like
side by side our own game versions of the game.
Yeah, like so far away from home, and I didn't feel like it's so well done on the Switch and handheld mode that I didn't feel like I was not experiencing the fullness of the game by not playing it on my TV. So it was really an eye-opening experience, and both of us, I would say, we favor home consoles to portables. And in that regard, I'm kind of hoping that the Switch becomes my favorite so-called portable console. I feel like portable games for the two of us, since starting the channel, have kind of taken a back seat.
Because we know we can't capture them.
We can't capture it. And we want to, a lot of our game time we feel like has to go into capturing something that can be used for the show.
Yeah.
And so we've been favoring much more. But you lived in New York. And commuted on the subway, and you were like, there was pretty
hardcore DS.
Yeah, you were
all the Dragon Quest games. Play those all like slowly on the train in 40-minute increments.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like doing the Game Boy episode gave me a renewed affinity for the Game Boy. Like, and even not just that, but in the years leading up to it, like I had sort of like always been like, oh, the Game Boy's fine, but it's like NES games, but not as good. And then I just hadn't really bought anything new much for the Game Boy in years and years. And then I just started slowly getting back into it. And even games like Bionic Commando and Ninja Gaiden are very unique versions on the Game Boy, and they stand on their own much better than I ever imagined. And so the Game Boys really had the original Game Boys really had kind of a revival for me personally. So I would have to say probably the Game Boy. I've discovered so much on it, even in recent years, not just nostalgic things from my childhood, but recent things I've discovered. And I would say that, says a lot about, how good a lot of those games are. So I'd say Game Boy for me, probably.
Yeah, I'd probably say DS. It'd probably be either DS or PSP. It's close. Yes, sir.
More question towards you.
Okay.
You know how I talked to you about the LED, because I was curious what your thoughts is to transition from LCD to that, and how you compare the picture quality to the BBMs and BBMs.
I mean, I feel like the OLED still looks very much like. I think it still looks like it's like an LCD TV but just supercharged in terms of perfect black levels, much better color. I mean, I've always been an advocate, really, of playing. I've got my PVMs. I love PVMs, but I've always been kind of I feel like in the long term we have to accept that we're probably going to be playing retro games on modern TVs, and so sort of getting good upscalers for that, and sort of acclimating yourself to the sort of image that produces. I feel like in the long term we're all going to have to get used to that.
Yeah. It's inevitable.
Yeah, but it does the pixel density makes there's smoother color transitions. I really like the OSSC for playing on a 4K TV. It just has much richer color than the Framemeister does. But yeah, I mean, I think OLED itself. The reason I went for OLED over just a 4K LCD TV. Really,
you were back and forth for a while.
I was, and I was kind of chickening out about spending that much on the OLED. But then I was like, you know what? You've been saving money for this. You owe it to yourself. Really, what made me go with the OLED was I was afraid that just going to 4K and even with HDR for HDR capable games, I was kind of afraid that it wasn't going to feel like the jump I wanted. So I didn't want just a jump in terms of resolution, just a jump because some games could do HDR. I wanted a jump in terms of the panel technology. I want that to feel like a much more complete jump for everything across the board. And I have not been disappointed in that.
Yes, sir.
Really quick one, because you mentioned Game Boy. When you guys were up to see Jeremy, because he's a huge Game Boy collector, did you guys check out any of his Game Boy collection?
Well, I went. Jeremy lives about 2.5 or so hours from me. We're talking about Jeremy Parrish, who does Retronauts. He is. We interviewed him to sort of play the historian role in our Night Trap documentary, yeah, he had. I didn't, I unfortunately didn't get to spend a whole lot of time there. You might have noticed that in the side of the documentary, he's got like these Game Boy things to
Like
the
smart
side.
work,
Yeah, there was like a Sega Genesis artwork that he had hung up that I kind of wished I could have put in the background, but there wasn't like anywhere good to put the lights, so that was the best lit spot. But we didn't look too much into his Game Boy stuff. He had like a bare board of like, I think it was Sonic 2 on the Game Gear that was taped over his webcam. I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I only had to ask just because he does. I listen on Retronauts, he'll bring up the struggle he has to go through the Game Boy world, because when he buys into this, I'll go into my real question. Like, he could easily just like show you an image of the game, but he wants to own the game, complete in box with the manual, and then on his own Super Game Boy show it. And then that kind of goes into my next question of, I was like asking video editors this, because I feel like with YouTube videos about games, or even just videos about games in general more than anything, no one ever really wants to use anyone else's footage. I don't think it's a pride thing, but I feel like unlike more like any other kind of videos, is like, is it just like you enjoy the act of like, all right, I need footage from X game, like with Super Mario, like you could have probably found it on YouTube somewhere and asked for it, and they probably wouldn't have minded, but it's like that extra step of like doing it. Do you ever kind of consciously think about it, or like let's say if we lived in a world where there was a Getty Images but for video games?
We've kind of been doing that a little bit.
Yeah, we've got a side channel called Video Game B-Roll that we're like offering to people. Like we don't have that much stuff on right now, really. Like a lot of like VHS stuff that we've like been recording.
It's like hour-long captures of, like hours-long capture of games.
Yeah.
We just like we do something else with the footage instead of just like using it.
But some stuff we're just releasing for people for free to say, hey, you can use this on this side channel. But like, yeah, there's something like, I mean, for one, I know how it was recorded. I know it's authentic. I know what quality it was. I know how it was scaled.
And you know what you have.
You know what you have. And like a lot of times it's like a specific shot. Like I've got in my mind like, oh, I want to, just have like a battle and Chrono Trigger set in, this area. Like, I don't know, like I have these ideas in my head where I'm like,
he's much better at that stuff than I am.
Like this sort of area, like I want that specific shot, But yeah, I mean, it's just like, you own it. That it's like going to be like a unique image that you've made that, I don't know, there is certainly something to it. We could take a lot more shortcuts than we do. And maybe that's dumb that we don't, but I don't know. There is something like we want to, as much as possible, create our own thing. Like sometimes people will send us like a picture of a rare thing that they have, and we'll put it in the episode. But we always feel like it's worth the shipping cost. Like if someone's like, oh well, I'll let you borrow this weird obscure system that you're probably going to use for like 15 seconds in your video. It's like, well, that's still worth covering the shipping cost just so we can like make our own version of that and share that like in the best way possible. But jumping back to what you were asking about Jeremy Parrish's Game Boy stuff, you jumped my memory. He had this box copy of Avenging Spirit, which I actually bought like a card-only Avenging Spirit at Too Many Games for $60, which like it's actually okay for that game. It's like he didn't even know. Like he was like, oh yeah, someone just sent me that. I don't think he had even played it. He didn't really know. I'm like, look. All you need to know about this game, by the way, it's kind of like Super Mario Odyssey. You're like this ghost that like can possess your enemies. It's like kind of this crazy thing that this concept is coming back in Mario Odyssey. But you can possess a fire-breathing kangaroo and play as that kangaroo. Okay? You want to pay $60 for that game? You know you do. So, anyway, that was a really cool thing to see there. He also had like a signed Bionic Commando. I don't know who signed it. That was cool.
Anybody else? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Planning any collaborations or anything with anybody?
You have some.
Oh yeah. We just released. Well, first of all, we just released soundtracks. Have you seen our soundtracks episode? Yeah, we did a collab with Game Dave.
Dave is always welcome around. So.
Yeah. Dave's like, I mean, we hang out with Dave all the time.
He makes us look like really bad actors.
He's got to be so. We've got some good outtakes on some of that stuff. He's got to be so frustrated. Say what?
Makes you look tall.
Oh yeah, well, and by the way, in the soundtracks episode, he looks a lot shorter than us, and he was standing on something even then. So, but we're like about 6 foot, both of us. So, but anyway, I think I can go ahead and say this. Yeah, because this is definitely happening. Anyone familiar with Digital Foundry?
Yeah.
One of the guys from there, like, actually, he lives in Germany, but he actually is originally from Corey's neck of the woods, because apparently everyone related to video games ever, like, lives in Cincinnati or lived in Cincinnati or something.
It's crazy, you know. We wanted to.
John Lindemann is who we're talking about. John Lindemann from Digital Foundry is going to appear and help us out with our PS2 RGB episode. But you were going to say...
I was just going to say that John, we wanted to have him on our live stream, and he's like, well, I'm going to be, the time difference makes it really difficult, and he said, but I'm going to be in the U.S. For Christmas. And he's like, okay.
We were just thinking that'd be like on Skype.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, well, I'm going to be in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I said, well, that's where I live. So that's why I ended up coming to my house.
So he like went over to your house and you played like Saturn and PlayStation Symphony of the Night side by side. So that was like awesome. But yeah, he's going to be in our PS2 episode. Sort of talking about like the hardware and some of the unique things that the PS2 can do. Because he's like really knows that system inside and out. We highly recommend Digital Foundry sort of has a sub-series that he does called DF Retro. And he does like these tech analysis of like older games and systems. And he's like currently doing this crazy thing where he's doing this 2-part 32X series where he's literally showing every 32X game and like, how poorly made most of them are.
But I mean, I don't know who else. I mean, we're always looking for like little cameos especially for the RGB stuff.
Yeah, we just had Clint from Lazy Game Reviews appear in the Saturn episode, which was fun.
And like Joe from GameStack is always up for a good little cameo if he doesn't
we've
spend a lot of time
We've
doing
been friends from Joe since like the early days.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What are some games that you want to talk about that you haven't been
Oh, man.
Well, the funny thing is, like, right when we were starting the channel, we made this Google Doc with, like, ideas.
This is, like, pages long.
Yeah, made with ideas. Like, the funny thing is we've done, like, ultimately so few of them. So we always like to say, like, we can't imagine, like, ever, like, running out of ideas. Like,
it usually just comes down to, like, okay, what idea can I do in the amount of time that I have?
Right. I would say for me, like, the one that always jumps to mind, like, I really, like, I would love to turn this into a documentary, but this would be, like, probably very difficult to do that. But regardless of whether I can do a documentary on it or whether I just do it as just a big blowout game episode, like, one of the things that just always comes to mind is I really want to do something on Donkey Kong Country.
We came so close.
We've got I don't know if we got time to tell the whole story, but we almost interviewed David Wise at MagFest this year. And has anyone heard this story before? I've told this story a few times. I know you've heard this story. we almost interviewed David Wise, the composer for Donkey Kong Country, at MagFest, and like, I think he'd been drinking and he didn't know that he like agreed to do it. And so we missed him by like 40 seconds, like once we finally found out where he actually was. And so we missed the chance, Maybe one day I'll go to England and just do it the hard way.
We really want like the interview stuff to become a big part. It's something we kind of envisioned when we first started the channel, but we didn't really have the body of work to be able to kind of pitch it to people. And I think You know, like the Cyan episode, Cyan and Mist.
Like,
that's
that's
kind
not
of a big breakthrough for us.
Right, like in that one, in fact, we don't properly categorize it as a documentary. We consider that a game showcase, but it just so happens to feature, you know, one of the co-creators of the game in it, and also the face of one of its main characters. And that's just something we've kind of always envisioned from the beginning, but just didn't, you know, weren't able to really approach people, or they weren't convenient. We just want to include like the perspectives of like other people. Like when we say my life in gaming, like to me that has never meant like me or me and Corey. Like that is, you know, we feel like
other people can
take ownership of that idea, like my life in gaming, or you know, anyone we feature in the episode, that is about their life in gaming, you know. What are some of the games you want to feature?
I definitely want to finish up, you know, doing all the Phantasy Star games. I just got kind of like the last piece of what I feel is necessary for Phantasy Star 3.
The hint book. You got the hint book here.
Yeah.
For a good deal too. You got good prices here.
Yes.
We do.
Don't change.
And you know, I really want to do an episode on the Assault Suit series, which is like Assault Suit Lanos, which is also known as Target Earth.
Cybernator.
Cybernator, which is also
the Super Nintendo.
Assault Suit Vulcan. I mean, it's hard to say if those episodes would be like really popular, but I think we kind of make a point to do, you know, the videos we want to do. You know, like we don't let the numbers like constantly like drive us to do, you know, like ROM hacking videos or something like that. We just kind of do the videos that we get excited about. I mean, that's the whole issue. Like the whole reason the channel started is because we were, you know, bored in our day jobs and we wanted to edit stuff that we could get excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
What do you think will be the next system you cover in the 200s?
PlayStation 2.
Yeah. Then hopefully TurboGrafx 16X. I'm not gonna.
No, that's not a problem. It's like
there's a lot of weird kind of expensive variants. So we'll see.
Like and I think both with like TurboGrafx and Neo Geo, those are both like communities that you want to know what you're talking about before you step on them.
Yeah, especially Neo Geo. I'm like kind of.
You were like
I'm scared to death of it.
You were thinking about doing Neo Geo like a year and a half ago or more,
yeah.
Right? And because we've got access through other people like to most of the hardware we would need to do that.
Yeah.
That and like PC gaming in Europe, those three communities. Like back talking about Retronauts, if you go back, they did maybe 5-6 years ago a 30-minute episode about like ZX Spectrum. Maybe one guy knew what he was talking about, and they just, because like the people who like that are like guys who've been playing for like 30+ years. They will they'll never live that down because it's like you got to know what you're talking about.
I mean, never say never on like the European PC console stuff, but I'm gonna say for the foreseeable future we'll leave like weird PC stuff to LGR
or like Kim Justice.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I don't even know what time it is.
We got about
6
5
minutes. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Any upcoming games you're excited about?
Oh man.
I mean, probably the game I'm most immediately excited about, I would say, is Mario Odyssey. I mean, I'm just a Nintendo guy at heart. What can I say? I like in terms of like, you know, like big deal, like AAA, PS4, Xbox One type games. Like, I feel like the one that I'm excited about most this year is like the new Wolfenstein. Like, I really liked the previous Wolfenstein.
New Blood.
Yeah, New Blood. I was getting confused because it's like New Blood and New Order and Old Blood. Yeah, I can't remember it anymore because of that, you know, little small sequel they released.
Yeah. For me, I've kind of gotten in this weird place where, you know, I know what I like and I know what I'm going to buy, and then I kind of see that first trailer and I don't look at anything else at all about it until it's in my hands. I mean, I'm excited about Mario too, but I mean, I'm excited to finally play Dragon's Trap.
Yeah.
I meant to buy, but I was like working on Night Trap at the time. I meant to buy it on the Switch, and now like I just waited for the limited run, and I'm excited to finally play that.
Yeah, I'm also excited about the E's Origin.
Yeah, but I have a PC. I have that on PC.
I guess that doesn't technically count as an upcoming game, but I'm excited about getting it anyway.
Oh, you know what? E's 8.
Oh yeah, E's 8, September. Yeah.
Yeah, that's way sooner than I thought it was.
I mean, I could just like check my Amazon pre-orders list now. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mario Odyssey is easily the thing that jumps to mind for me.
But we're definitely a big E's fan, so it's I'm pretty excited about 8.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Oh, you want to?
Oh, one more.
Okay, what is your favorite of the PlayStation consoles?
They were of the PlayStation consoles.
That's kind of a roundabout question for me, because like back up until the late '90s, I was like hardcore Nintendo only, and then like I just started getting into RPGs, and like at the time, like N64 didn't really have RPGs, and so I started to be interested in PlayStation, and so I eventually bought a PlayStation in the late '90s and got into the RPGs, but it was always like this begrudging thing. Like I was like, I don't want to own this thing. I'm just owning it as an RPG machine. And it was really the same kind of thing with the PS2. I got the PS2 within the first year of its release, but it was like, I just have this for the RPGs and as a DVD play. But then it was like the PlayStation 3 where like at first like I went to that generation thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna go Nintendo only again, the Wii will satisfy me. And then there was that E3 where like they had nothing but Wii music. And I'm like, and that was when like that was just after Metal Gear Solid 4 release, and it's just like, how did I think I was going to go through my life without playing like the newest Metal Gear and Resident Evil and Final Fantasies and all that stuff? How did I think I was going to do that? So like I bought a PS3, and like that was like the first generation where it was like, you know what? I think I like PlayStation. Like I mean, that's nothing to say against anything against the Wii because I love the Wii too. But it was like Sony's all right. Like they do pretty good stuff. Like they've actually like I felt like especially in the PlayStation 3 generation, I feel like Sony's first party like really came into their own and like Uncharted and stuff like that. But at the same time, like now like I feel like a generation always has to be like a couple of generations removed to like really start having strong feelings about it again. Now that it's like we're playing PlayStation 4, like I don't really have a lot of interest in playing PlayStation 3 games right now. But like
definitely PS1 is like my favorite.
Yeah, yes, PS1.
I never
like
thought...
now PS1 is my favorite, but I really liked PlayStation 3 during its generation. And I'm sure that in several years from now, nostalgia will be brought up for PlayStation 3 again. But like PS1 is definitely where it's at, I think.
I never thought I'd have nostalgia for the PS1. I mean, I got it my first year of college. It had been out for a year and a half at that point, and I just never thought I would care about it as much as I do.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about those like wobbly textures and low polygon models. It's just
it's a lot better than the N64.
Hey now.
If I had to pick one that was like my least favorite system, it'd probably be the N64.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a defender of the N64 because I was like the right age when the N64 came out. I was like, I think I was 13 when it came out, and like that was like right when I was like getting into like following games and getting excited about what was coming up next. And so, I have a huge soft spot for the N64, and I'm always mad when people are like, it's only got like 5 games worth of play. That is so not true, people.
It's got like 10.
Try at least like 30 or 40, maybe 50. I mean, come on.
I don't know about that. I think that's it. Is that it?
Does that do it?
Thank you to everybody here who watches our show. It's just really, it's so cool seeing everybody face to face like this. This is the only second time we've ever been a guest at a convention. It's pretty surreal having people come up to us and say that they watch our stuff.
Yeah, we've had a good time here.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.